Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're a first time viewer, my name is Jeff Lanoski. I am back with my good friend, Max Mitchell.
What's up guys?
So if you've been following the channel, Max and I recently took a trip to Moab. We were riding our bikes all over, all kinds of obstacles. So today we're gonna talk to you about our favorite way to get up and over stuff on the trail. And it's called the punch.
It's called the punch.
There you go. A lot of riders like to think that if you want to get up and over something, you need to bunny hop. Well, Max and I prefer to use the punch. It's a lot more effective in all different trail situations, and there's three main reasons we prefer to use this method. So reason number one.
The first reason is that, we're both pretty tall guys. We've got long seat posts. And when your post is this high, bunny hopping is just not really an option, but you can still punch with a post this high, certainly on small obstacles as well. So when you're on the trail, you don't have to be with a low seat to make this possible. That's reason number one. Reason number two, you don't need a ton of speed to do a punch as opposed to a bunny hop. So a punch just is more consistent when you're using it out on the trail. Reason number three, a lot of people are riding full suspension bikes, arguably most people on the trail, and bunny hopping with them definitely takes a lot more rider input, whereas the punch is pretty doable on both hardtails and full suspension. And with a lot of people riding bigger and bigger bikes, they're becoming harder to bunny hop, longer wheelbases, but the punch is still something you can do long wheelbase, short wheelbase, long travel, short travel. So just a really great option from that standpoint. Before we get into how to do the punch, why don't we take a look at three of our favorite punches that we've done recently. Cool, that sounds good. All right, this one was from Sedona, Arizona. This one was super tough because you're going uphill. I had to do a bunny hop for it. When I land, I get one last pedal crank, and then it's about a handlebar height step up. I got a couple from Sedona. So the first one, definitely what was challenging about it was uphill, and it was also really tall. It was a decent amount above handlebar height. And so you had to kind of just keep the momentum up the hill and then get enough momentum to drive you forward. And it was kind of just like inching across just to make it. This is from a video that I had to pull off the internet last year, but it was a punch and it was onto a rock that wasn't super high, about 30 inches, but it was literally on the side of a cliff. So you want the most consistent way possible, not taking any chances with that much consequence. So this one's cool, and what's difficult about this one is it had an overhang to it. So I always find that with the overhang, it's more intimidating because you're always worried about your front wheel going below it, and it actually worked, so I was super stoked to get that one. All right, the last one I have is from the ride we just did in Moab. It was about a handlebar height. Got it first try, but it was pretty challenging. So the third one for me is going to be same ride, just a little bit further up the High Mus Trail. This one was kind of good because it was more uphill, so you had to maintain your speed, and then it was kind of rounded, so you needed to maintain enough speed to actually get you all the way on the rock, which was further set back than your initial bump was going to be. All right, so now that we talked about a few of our favorite punches recently, let's give them some tips on how to do the punch. So there's a couple different ways to lift your front wheel. If you're gonna do a punch, you wanna do a preload and lift, not a manual and lift. The biggest difference is when you do a preload and lift and your wheel's high, you have a bunch of bend in your elbows. That allows you to do the secondary movements that are necessary. When you do a manual, you're more in the back seat, so you're not gonna wanna use a manual style lift. So a couple tips for the preload. So you're gonna be rolling along at kind of a pretty slow speed, I think, to kind of replicate what you'd be doing on the trail. You're gonna stand up reasonably tall to start with. You're gonna push down into the fork to get a bit of compression, and that's gonna allow you to pull up. You're gonna bend your elbows and bring the front wheel up to you. That's the number one thing to remember. You're not gonna try to get your front wheel high by snapping your chest back or anything like that. You're just bringing the handlebars to your chest. The higher your wheel is, the more bend you're gonna have in your elbows. So once you've practiced your front wheel lifts, that's gonna be the chance for you to go and take it to an actual obstacle. And so let's go check it out right over here. This is the same exact rock I did a punch video on 5 years ago. So this one is new and improved. So when you're trying to find something to practice on, general rule of thumb of bigger is better definitely holds true with this. I don't even like teaching people to do rear wheel lifts on flat ground. It doesn't really translate to what you're trying to do with a punch. Trying to get your back tire up on flat ground is really hard because you have no mechanical advantage under the handlebars. So when you try on something a little bit higher, once your front tire is up on it, you can get under the handlebars. It allows you to push your handlebars up. There's not a lot of scooping going on with your feet. So try to find something at least curb height, maybe even a little bit taller to start practicing on. So using the preload lift, when you've tapped your front wheel on here, nice bent elbows, super important because then from there you're gonna lunge yourself and the bike forward, and that's going to allow the bike to come up and over the obstacle. You're going to want to roll in at a pretty comfortable pace, and you want to have your pedals level. So I like to coming rolling the object with my opposite foot forward, and this allows me to do a half pedal stroke just before the obstacle and allows to keep a little bit more momentum as well.
The half pedal helps you lift your front wheel. And then also when I'm doing high ones, it's pretty scary to roll into it super fast. So if you take that half pedal, it helps you ramp up your speed and it almost tricks you into feeling a little bit more comfortable when you're going on something high. Tip number 3 would be wheel placement. So when you're going on something that's not super high, you can get away with putting your wheel directly on top. You said that you like to bounce your wheel a little bit.
Yeah, I almost kind of like to tap it on the top, and that kind of initiates the next part of the move.
When you go quite a bit higher though, you don't need to put your front wheel directly on top. You can start to spot that front edge. If you start to get like 30 inches tall, that's super tough. So you go into that front corner, it just makes it a little bit lower. You don't need to make this move any harder than it needs to be. The biggest challenge is once your front tire is up there, you see a lot of riders smash their back tire into what they're getting onto. So normally that's because they're doing a manual, not a preload and lift. What tips do you have for getting up your back tire?
So for me, when I'm coming into the obstacle, I've tapped my front wheel on there, that I want to have my legs a little bit bent, and this is going to allow me to lunge forward and then pull the bike up with me. I want to bring that back wheel up, and then I can kind of roll on top rather than smashing into the obstacle.
That's super important. Like Max said, when you do that front wheel, if you want to have a little bit of bend in your knees so that when you need to lift your back tire, you don't have to push your whole entire body weight. You can spring off your feet a little bit and get that height to get up onto the obstacle. All right, there you go. That's our top tips on how to do the punch.
Cool, so yeah, get out there and practice and just kind of gradually build it up a little bit higher each time. Super useful on the trail, just opens up a whole bunch of new moves with low speed, which is awesome. Definitely one of my favorite moves to do. If there's anything else you want to learn or you'd like us to show you some how-tos, please put them in the comments below and we'll do what we can.
Yeah, so Max is the newest member of the Trail Boss Academy.
Stoked.
So if you need personal coaching on the West Coast, he'll be your guy. He'll be joining us at some clinics in 2023. So hopefully you found that video entertaining, hopefully found it useful. Until next time, get out there and be a boss.